Hello, everyone. Today's episode is all about the stock ball, why you should have one, how you can identify it, and ultimately, we're going to look at how having a great foundation can improve your game. First of all, though, Keith, how are you getting on today, pal? How are you getting on? You've been training, haven't you, this morning?
Training a little bit. I've got a bit more training this afternoon. I've got to get myself to Solent Uni to do some strength testing. Hopefully tick a few boxes so then I can start training with the team a bit more. How about yourself, mate? How have you been?
I'm flagging a bit this morning. Actually, I've had a few coffees. I tried to watch the cricket. Obviously, England are in India at the minute, so I did what I usually do. So I set an alarm in the morning because I do quite like the series in the subcontinent. So I set an alarm for 4, and I thought, right, I left the missus in bed, snuck downstairs, didn't wake the kids up or anything like that. Turned it on, had the volume at the right level, and then basically I just fell asleep on the sofa. So I just got out of a warm, cozy bed and just got onto a sofa and slept there. And I basically didn't see as much cricket as I wanted.
Lovely.
Yeah. Although I saw bits of it, when you sort of drift in and out. But it is an early start. Yeah. But glad your training's going well and you're working hard. You've obviously had a bit of a knee op, haven't you? I think, and you're in
Yeah.
the process of getting back nice and strong.
Yeah, operation in October I had. Just over 2 months rehab so far. It's going well, but I think I'm about a month or so away from being fully fit. But hopefully do some more batting and I think maybe start running tomorrow. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Nice. Well, I'm glad it's going well and you're on track. This is a weird episode in that it's such an important theme and topic, but it's quite hard to plan and prepare for. So it'd be interesting to know where this conversation goes. But I mean, should we start by? I mean, we assume people know what we mean when we say you need a stop ball, don't we?
Yeah, you'd like to think so, mate. We all know what a stop ball is. I'd like to think, and that's our best ball, where we're setting a field where we know if we bowl it well enough, that's where the ball's going to go, and it gives you like full confidence of just bowling that same ball, really knowing what it's doing, and challenging the batsman. That's what you'd like to think, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like it's the foundation of your game, isn't it? The stop ball. What obviously individuals are all going to have different ones, but ultimately it's the foundation of your game, and it's what you should be planning your strategy around. Plan A, so to speak, I guess.
Yes, yeah. I
Um,
think people need to probably stick to more times than not. People can get carried away with wanting to go to Plan B too quick sometimes. When Plan A,
absolutely, absolutely. And if in doubt, you should be basically be bowling a stop ball. I mean, that's something that um, if bowlers have like routines in their head, don't they? And as you're thinking, as you're going back to your mark, if ever you're in a position where you feel a bit scrambled or like you're maybe overthinking it, bowl your stop ball would be quite a nice message to have.
yeah, totally agree.
So in terms of a stop ball, then I mean, like, how many do you need in terms of? Do you need a different one for a right-hander, left-hander, across different formats and all these sorts of things, or do you think it's just one ball that across everything?
I think depends on the level you're at. I think the higher you go, the more that we say stop ball deliveries you probably need to be almost as good as your main delivery. But I think your stop ball's got to be good enough that you're challenging a right-hander, maybe swinging it away if you're a right-arm bowler. But then you can obviously look to bowl your stop ball, bringing it back into a left-hander, and ingrain that into you, so it is there no matter what. Only then you can look to find different deliveries and really work on those to almost have a stop ball for different uh, left-handed batters, right-handed batters. It's difficult to kind of explain because you've got to have a stop ball, but if you want to get the next level of wherever you're playing, you've got to learn a new skill and almost create that as a stop ball to a left-hander, let's say. So you could have, like yourself, you swing the ball away to a right-hander, but a left-handed batsman, what would your stop ball be?
That's a good point, Keith. Now it would be like a wobble seam and going across, and I'd use my in swinger to them as a variation. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I wonder if there's a certain level or a level of experience or ability where perhaps you can have a completely different ball for both. But I think, like you say, you hopefully as a bowler at any level and at any age, really, you should know a ball that you think, yeah, I'm really comfortable bowling this. So let's just assume that you're the sort of bowler that runs in, hits the deck, and nips it back. Well, you should very much concentrate on making that a super strength and the best ball that you possibly can, because that'll be a great ball to right-handers. It'll obviously threaten the pad for an LB and a bowled. If it doesn't nip back, it'll bring the slips into play. And then equally, anytime a left-hander's in, you use that same ball, and perhaps you're initially more likely to get a nick off through to the cordon. Do you know what I mean? Than you are the
Yeah.
bowled LBs. But ultimately, that skill is honed in, isn't it? And it's become second nature. Um, how long do you reckon it's taken you? So you obviously in your career, your stock ball started off being an in swinger to the right hander and an away swinger to the left hander, from over the wicket. How long before that felt really comfortable for you?
I was fortunate enough that my in swing to a right hander and left hander was always there from quite an early age. So it was ingrained in me, and you're always told bowl the same ball over and over, bowl your best ball, which was for me just swinging the ball. And it got to a stage where people start to analyze what you do and change the way they set up. That I then had to work really hard to develop another ball, which became almost a surprise ball to start with, and
Yep.
mainly still swinging it and bowling that as my stock ball. But then over time, I'm still working on that wobble seam, that almost becoming the same strength as my in swinger to a right hander. So I then look to use it for different styles of batsmen, whoever I've bowled at. It just depends on the situation. But it's taken a long time of me bowling one ball since I was a kid, even to the age of mid-20s, before I then opted to look at a different skill, and really work on that to be a super strength for me as well. So almost having, not that my wobble seems amazing or anything like that, but try and be as strong as my normal in swinger.
Uh, yeah, I completely agree. And actually, I think we did an episode with Graham Welch, which will be aired a little bit after this. But I really honestly believe that you can do really well as a bowler with quite a limited number of deliveries. So you there, by this, what you've said, you did really well. You won a county championship with Warwickshire in 2012, and for the most part, you bowl one delivery with a good bumper as well. That's two balls.
Yeah.
And the bumper's, I think, quite simple to bowl. So really, you had a brilliant ball that would swing back in to a right-hander. You had a good bumper, and then obviously every now and again, a bit of natural variation. The ball's going to
Yes.
not shape and go across. But you played for England Lions as well in that period, and that was all before you added these different components to your game, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I really believe that at any level, there's bowlers that can achieve really good levels of success just with a limited number of deliveries. Um, it's uh, it's it's tempting though, isn't it? Sometimes when you see bowlers like we've put some posts on our social media of like Jimmy Anderson and
Yeah.
stuff like this, and he's got every trick in the book and stuff like that. But equally, he's in his mid to late. Well, he's in his late 30s, isn't he?
No, he's 41 now.
Um,
I saw it the other day. I saw it the other day. It said he's
Wow.
41. Yeah, 40.
I probably should have known that, to be fair. But yeah, so it is a journey. It is a journey, and the trick is almost to resist the temptation and the sort of the glamour of lots of variation until you've got your super strength, which should be your
Yes,
stock ball. Is that fair?
that is fair, mate. I agree with that.
Um, on the subject of Jimmy Anderson, actually, I remember playing a game against him when I was quite young, and obviously I'd seen him on the telly, but I hadn't played against him. Um, And I swear, so he played a lot of international cricket, and he was stepping down, play for Lancashire against Essex. He used that championship game to practice his in swinger to a right hander, and therefore his away swinger to a left hander. I remember shaping up. I went out to bat against him, and I was like, right, this bloke swings it away, slippery sort of pace. He bowled a ball around fourth, fifth stump, and I was like, oh, that's a leave. So I got a big stride in, and it was a huge inning. It just smashed me in the gut, left me on the floor. You know, when you're like, oh yeah, okay. Well, you know, when you're like completely thrown by it. But even he realised that he had to put time in on his stock ball and then a good chunk of time on his variation before he was happy to utilize it.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? I was just thinking then we've forgotten this. I don't know how we've got this far without actually mentioning this. You need a stock ball to actually have a field that you can set for that delivery. Just a simple, if it's for, like yourself swinging it away from a right-hander, you know the field that you want. You could probably have a few slips, have the offside point, cover, mid off, whatever it is. But you know that's where the ball's most likely going to go. And you know, with a bit of natural variation, your lines might stray a fraction. And let's say your stock ball is not working at the way you want it to, and you are leaking a little bit through the offside, where your lines are a little bit wide. You either getting driven through point or cut through point, as an example. You can still bowl your stock ball, but just adjust one field position, which could be dropping point at, just to give you a little bit of protection, so you can keep trying to work on your line and try and get a bit straighter. And if you then get a bit straighter bowling your stock ball, you can bring that fielder back in and attack the batsman again.
Mate, 100%. You're right. We probably should have touched more on that. I mean, ultimately, you have to have a plan of how you're going to get a batsman out, and you have to have knowledge of, like you've just said there, where potentially it goes wrong for the type of bowler you are. So that ultimately the captain can go, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. He's looking to get his wickets this way. He might leak here, but this is where we're going to put our fielders, and this is how we're going to manage the game. And actually, it's probably worth talking. You know, let's say used as an away swing bowler as an example there. What about for an in-swing bowler? Because, or you operate a lot now, left arm round the wicket at right-handers. Are there areas that you think they're almost like a default setting where if you get it wrong, does it tend to go wrong in the same place?
For me, myself coming around the wicket, I know my line has to be now straighter than kind of middle and off. I don't really want to be any straighter than that. Obviously, middle stump, still a shout of an LB if they miss it, but umpires aren't stupid. Round the wicket, angle, chances are it's not going to. And also then with the angle, I can get clipped through the leg side. So I kind of put pressure on myself to still have square leg up, and almost air more towards, if I'm going to be one side of the wicket, I'd rather be more towards fourth stump with the angle. But knowing if I'm fifth, sixth stump, it's probably going to be a chance for them to free their arms up. So I've got quite a narrow line, I feel, to work with. But I just back myself to actually get that right. So yeah, I can't be too wide, really too straight. There's for me a small channel I've got to work with.
See, I love this chat, and obviously this is, you know, someone of your level and the amount of experience you've got describing that. I'm a firm believer that you can have good success without necessarily being particularly good if you make the right decisions. So an example of this, for example, me opening the bowling at two right-handers, is stop ball is an away swinger, right? Ideally, you'd pitch every ball on middle and off. It would swing away, and you know you're absolutely on the money for everything. But the reality is, you're going to miss in lots of different ways. So, providing I know that I'm just going to try and bowl that delivery, yeah, there's a couple of different ways that I can think. So, if I'm a bit too wide as a default on any given day, because let's be honest, most days you're 7 out of 10. We all want to think we're better than that, but you've got to be good when you're a 7 out of 10. So let's say on a particular day I'm too wide, and the captain's like, "Come on, you've got to make them play a bit more here," which I'm sure a lot of away swing bowlers have heard, and you will hear. If you swing the ball away, you're going to get that, you know, that chat from the captain or the coach at some point. And the trick is not to worry too much about it. But actually, as long as you're trying to swing the ball away, there's lots of different moves. So, for example, you could, if you felt like you weren't getting played enough, and this is one of my favourite ones, maybe not so much with the new ball, but in the middle of an innings, is you can lose your square leg to enable you to bowl a slightly greedier line, and you can almost double it up and pretend it's also for a short delivery. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, that fielder there allows you for a few deliveries potentially just to find your line a bit straighter, knowing that if it doesn't swing from that line, that you've got that protection. But actually, perhaps the batter thinks it's more for a short ball, which it may or may not be, and you can work your way in that way. Or, like you said earlier, if you think you're bowling a bit too wide, but the batsman is playing at you and scoring, then you can always manipulate your field on the offside, perhaps lose a slip and push point through or something like that. But again, it all stems from having that basic plan. And then pretty much it can be like a series of chess moves. Do you know what I mean? If a batter plays like that, I will move my fielder here. And that doesn't actually require skill, I don't think. Putting your fielders in the right place and having an honest sort of chat with yourself about where you're good and where you maybe leak runs, you can kind of cover everything off. I've just rambled a bit there, but do you know what I mean? I don't know if that was clear or not.
No, that makes sense. I've got a question now. What happens if a batsman starts batting outside the crease to you, or comes across and bats outside the crease because you're swinging it away because they want to play you more? What are you going to bowl? You stop ball then, or what are you going to do with your execution?
Are you talking? You're talking about me here as a right
Yep.
arm.
As a
This is an
first class
interesting one. You don't want to give too much away, because I don't want to see a load of batters like next year doing this. I would say 100%. If a batsman stays on leg stump, for example, that is like happy days. As an away swing bowler, there, I'm like, I can bowl the most greedy big away swinger ever, and you're showing me all the stumps, and I've got all the nick offs in place. So most good batters do come across, and they'll be on middle and maybe middle and off, and it, I suppose, keeps their right eye outside off, and they can leave well. I think that's the biggest challenge. I don't tend to do too much there, other than try and be a bit better. I mean, I quite like it when batsmen come out the crease and push at it. I've got a couple of. I haven't got it on me on hand to show you, but there is an example of me getting a wicket like that last year. And again, maybe I'm just a bit older, so my air is a bit tighter. But I don't want to be made not to bowl my stock ball. So that's where, again, I would use a short ball cleverly, and hopefully that might stop the batter using his feet out. And I would probably bowl a few more wobble seam or in swingers, just because I want it in the batter's head a bit that if he gets right over to the wrong ball, he's out LB. And also a little bit of a cue for the umpire as well, just to be like, But in general, I'm still looking to smash an area on and around. Yeah, the area doesn't change too much. Yeah, I feel like you've just told the batsman how to play how to
Not
play
really.
football. What
No,
about you?
I just wanted to know with your answer. I'll tell you with myself, but I wanted to know your answer because people are going to have that happen to them, and you've kind of alluded to that. You might just change one or two deliveries, but you're still wanting to bowl your stop ball, which is swinging it away. So you're trying to get a little bit back from the batsman to then be able to bowl what you want to bowl. Myself, yeah, I think not that many batters will listen to this, so because it is the bowlers' union.
Suppose you know what, we're not
Um,
going to let them. Somehow we'll come up with a filter that stops them getting on.
yeah, basically, yeah. If you're selfish-minded, then yeah, you're just not going to be able to listen.
Yeah.
So for myself, yeah, if a batsman's showing all three stumps, I'm almost in my head going, you've not got many balls before you're out. Obviously, the more they shuffle across, the more I will then. I'm talking from me bowling a way swing to a left-hander here. I will
Yes.
then, if they want to come across, I will then not really bowl many away swingers,
Oh,
because
okay.
it's like I'm also almost going, well, you are wanting me to bowl more at your stumps, because that's where you come across to get in line with it a little bit more towards you. Almost, I see your movement and I raise you a wobble seam to nip back and smash you on the pad,
Hmm.
and just show the odd away swinger just to keep them a little bit honest. So that's how I would operate. Yeah, and that's where I feel like my stock ball, I have almost two stock balls now.
Yeah, and again, you've got two stop balls because you're in your 30s. You've got a huge bank of practice and everything under, behind you and things. Yeah, it's interesting that we have slightly different approaches. What I would say is, in you and I as characters, we are quite different, which hopefully is why we get on as a partnership and all this
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean? But
Well,
you're
how do you go on? How do you see me as a bowler then? And I'll see how I see you.
okay. The way I perceive you is you're quite thoughtful and you're quite happy to kind of do a lot of thinking. I'd say you're a little bit of a tinkerer. As in, you're happy to try lots of different things, only
Yeah,
because you can and you earn the right. But you're happy to try lots of different things, um, to perhaps unset the batter. Um, where I'd say, and it's interested in what you think. I try and simplify a lot more and remove thinking almost by having some more default things that I would do. Is that fair or not? Yeah, I don't know. Don't know what you.
I think you analyze well when you're bowling. This is from me talking about when I've been stood at mid off, when you're bowling and stuff. We're on the kind of same page with what we see. Um, you have a let me think now. You have a way of, if a batsman was to come out of the crease, it's a little bit of a red rag to a bull.
Oh yeah, 100%. You've got to have a
um,
bit of ego. You've got to have a
yeah,
bit of ego.
yeah. I think you will attack things a little bit more aggressively than I will probably go for a bit more thought process of like kind of analyzing, and you will to a certain extent, but I think you will then almost up the ante a little bit in how aggressive you are, which I
You
think
know
gives
what?
you have another gear where you're able to do that.
I This is again, I love these chats, and ultimately you need both, right? So there's definitely been times where I would have been playing and I'd have thought, I wish I was a bit more considered like Keith, and I wish I'd have been a bit more thoughtful. But then equally, there are times where I felt like the captain has to bowl me here. I'm the man. The thing, you know what I mean? This needs a bit of my stubbornness and my bloody mindedness to get us a wicket
Yeah,
and things. So there's part of being a bowling attack, isn't it? And a bowling partnership is you need to cover these little bases. But what I would say, there is a common theme, even though we've got different approaches, is the self belief. So you would display self belief, knowing I've got these skills that I can use, and I can outthink you no matter what you do. And my form of self belief is I know that I can still, even though you might want to use your feet a bit, I'm going to bowl heavy enough and quick enough that I can keep using my stock ball. You can't kind of force me away from it, um, which is probably going to be another episode, isn't it, about self
yeah,
belief and mindset.
yeah, yeah.
But they're
Um,
they're they're really good points. Interestingly, we've talked about ourselves a little bit here, um, which I suppose is our podcast. We can't we? But we both probably, certainly initially in our careers, would think of ourselves as swing bowlers.
yeah.
As Graham Welch, our coach, would say, the finer art of the game, swing bowling. If you're a seam bowler and you're not really a swing bowler, your stock ball and knowing what it is far simpler. Is that fair?
Yes, I agree. I think you end up. I think it becomes so much about your lines and lengths, and knowing that you've probably got a little bit more. I think if you're someone who nips it, you've got a little bit more room for error. As long as your line's good, your length can vary a little bit more. With swing, I feel like you're taking a lot more into condition of what the ball, if it's swinging much, if it's not swinging too much, how you're trying to get it to swing more. The breeze you could be bowling into, against it, swinging it against the breeze or whatever. So there's more to consider in that area. But I think if you're a nip bowler, to progress your stock ball, I think we're looking at trying to be taller and almost crash the deck even harder. You've got to be strong at the crease, almost trying to be stronger at every ball you bowl, to try and extract a little bit more out of the ball. Like, you know, Glenn McGraw was amazing, wasn't he, at doing that? Just finding an area and not leaving it, but just getting it to talk constantly. Obviously, he had height, which helped, but I think there's a lot of bowlers out there who could be probably a little bit taller at the crease to help get the ball to do something else.
Oh, you're 100% right, Keith. You know, actually, I played 2 games with Glenn McGrath when I was younger, and had a chat with him to try and kind of like pick his brain. And I'm thinking, I'm going to pick the brains of the best bowler ever here. And it was almost disappointing because of how simple he kept the game. And like you've just mentioned there, with the caveat that he's very tall, but ultimately he got in a good position at the crease, maximised his height, and basically he didn't try and do anything. His stock ball was basically a top of the stumps kind of length, and he knew his line was going to be 4 stump. That was it. And if it did anything, that was a bonus. It was that simple, and he's played well at the pinnacle of the sport and done brilliantly well. Yeah, it is amazing how simple things can be. I did have another point I wanted to ask you. So, what I think Glenn McGrath did really well, and I guess other bowlers who have achieved high levels of success, is being really self-aware of what their qualities are. You know, like McGrath was exceptionally tall, so pretty much he knew his length was going to be hard to play. He didn't keep it. He didn't try and complicate things. He just bowled a good line. Equally, someone like Dale Steyn, very slippery and quick, had a good away swinger, and would, as a result, would use his bumper to kind of give himself length and then earn his wickets full. I think it's kind of picking that stock ball. I say picking. It should ideally it should be natural, shouldn't it, Keith? But like picking the stock ball that suits your natural skills, and then hopefully you marry in the correct game plan. So, for example, you've become a huge fan of the wobble seam, haven't you? And you bowl round the wicket more to right-handers.
Yeah.
And you're self-aware. You know that that's the right game plan for you.
Well, I just realised that obviously right-handers, once they kind of figured me out, I was swinging it back. They changed the way they would set up. They'd be a little bit more open to stop the LBs, and would give them better access to actually defend the ball, just with my stock in swing ball. And the only time I really got them to edge the ball to keep or slip is if they pushed at one they probably shouldn't have. And that then becomes about their patience of just leaving and waiting for the ball to come to them. Coming round the wicket, my angle alone, just going towards the stumps, means that the stumps are in play. And bowling wobble seam, and majority of my balls, when they do nipping away, meant that I can still find the edge there as well. So I felt as though all 3 were in play, bowled LB and a nick off, whereas from over the wicket, I didn't feel like my percentage was as high. So I totally agree with that. And that is the main reason why I come around. It's not just for a laugh. It is for those reasons. I'm looking to try and get wickets as quickly as possible. That's why now, if a right-hander comes in to bat, it could be from the first ball of the game, last ball, I will come round.
Are there times where you'd still come over the wicket and swing it back? Are there certain batters that you've done research on and you're like, oh, okay, actually, I can go back to my original style?
Yeah, there's a few. But even then, I do feel like most batsmen struggle with that angle. I don't think many right-handers face left arm around the wicket that often. so it's still more of a newer thing to face. And even on top of that, I will bowl the odd away swing ball. I know we're going off stop ball here because I'm talking about another delivery. Round the wicket, I'll bowl an away swinger just to let them know I've got it. But then the one thing they're really not expecting, which I've got quite a few wickets at times from setting them up bowling wobble seam, is then a surprise in swinger from round the wicket, which is still my stop ball. It's just
Supernatural that for you, isn't
yeah.
it?
And I'm chucking it out to like sixth stump, but with my angle, it's still kind of heading in. I have to almost push it out a fraction. And people have got into a little bit of a trance of just, it's almost angling in, but it's trying to nip away or whatever. But they see that ball go outside their eye line, and they look to just free their hands up, and before they know it, it's swung through them.
See, I love this. What I like about this is, although you are as skillful as you are, you're coming round the wicket to a
And good
right
looking.
hander.
And good
Yeah.
looking.
Now you've had your hair cut and you shaved. Coming round the wicket is because it's fundamentally successful for some general purposes. So I'll be honest, my thought process to bowling at left-handers over the wicket is that if I stay over, because I've got a natural in-swinger to them, I have to work a bit harder to go across them, but I've got that natural innie. I've got bowled an LB, and I've got the ball, obviously, that goes away. That brings the slips in. That's why I quite like operating from over, because I feel like the LB is slightly less in play by coming round the wicket and bowling an LB, because a batsman would get forward and be outside the line. But I again, there's default plans. If I was a seamer and I didn't swing the ball at all, I'd always be round the wicket at left-handers, bowling wobble seam, because basically bowled and LB are in play, and you've got the court behind. I think that's a sensible, fundamentally correct plan, which can be implemented at any level. That's what I love, is that actually the thought process requires no skill. You can make the correct decision and just, do you know what I mean? Implement a basic game plan, but obviously it does require you knowing what the stock ball is that you've got to bowl. Fair?
Would you? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Would you? I just thought of this now. Would you say more, the taller you are, the more you would probably want your stock ball to be nipping around?
The taller I was.
Yeah. If not, as in that, if you were 6'4" or 5" height, would you? Do you think it's more effective for you to be a swing bowler or someone that nips it?
Oh, that's a
Not that
great.
you get to pick and choose, but as in, if you were a young bowler who's quite tall or whatever, and you're still trying to, grow into your body a little bit, and you could work on a few things, do you think it's more effective being?
This is a really tough question. I'm just letting you talk while I'm thinking. Ultimately, I know we both believe that you've got to get the ball moving in some way, shape, or form. I'm thinking of tall bowlers that I've faced. Someone like Chris Tremlett back in the day. I'd say he was a swing bowler. He used to have a beautiful away swinger, and from height he could bowl quite full, commit batters on the front foot, and sort of have that swing but on the bounce kind of thing going on. But then you got like a McGrath, who would be the same height but was like, "No, I'm just going to bash an area." What I would say is you get more nip if you have more downward force into the pitch.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're not a science podcast here, but you can imagine the seam is in the surface of the pitch that fraction longer, which helps it grip into it. But I'd probably err on the side of nip. I think if I was tall, but then if you're shorter, you're going to find it harder to get nip for the reason I sort of just said. But the seam isn't going to grip in the surface in quite the same way. So you best have decent airspeed and swing it. Otherwise, you're going to bowl skiddy straight honors, and that's a batter's favourite in my experience. So we've covered quite a lot of stuff here. How can a bowler, let's say an emerging teenager, young seamer, whatever, loves bowling, runs in, big heart, and all of this. How can they identify what the best stock ball for them is?
Well, you want it to be natural. You want it to be something that you can repeat comfortably. And Chris, success leaves clues, mate.
Yeah, 100%. If you're getting poles left, right, and centre, then there's probably that's probably your stock ball, isn't it? Well, we've been going for a decent amount of time now. Are you happy to have a wrap up now?
Yes, mate. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we talked about what a stock ball is, and ultimately, it's it's your go-to, isn't it? It's your foundation. It's the ball that you're going to build your whole game plan around. If you're at a sufficiently high level, you might have a subtly different ball for a left and right hander, but there's no reason why it can't be the same delivery in all scenarios. And in terms of finding out what that is, like we just said there, success leaves clues, but ultimately it should be natural and pretty repeatable. And then hopefully you make it a super strength. I think that's important. That's important. Right. Well, look, thanks for joining us, everyone. Please listen in, give us some 5-star reviews if you like it, and share it with some friends if you think it's offering some value, and then check us out on YouTube too. All right, Keith, well, I'll play the outro music, but if you got anything, I'm going to get on with it.
Nothing more from me, mate. Catch you soon.
Yeah, take it easy. See ya.